Hey, my name is Jordan. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the things that I try to do as a lead guitarist in general. So when I'm playing guitar, I tend to be playing mostly in a lead guitar position. So I typically have another supporting guitarist that's playing rhythm parts, and I get to play the lead parts on this. Now, aside from learning a song in its entirety, every part on the track, I think while that can be a very good and useful tool, I think for me, there's been a couple other things that have really helped me be able to know what to play and when to play it. So as a lead guitarist, one of the things I learned is that sometimes it is true that less is more. Now what I don't mean is that we don't need to always play simply, but sometimes it means that we simply should just not play. And a lot of times in verses and things like that, if I'm able to cut out of my guitar playing and I'm no longer playing, this will help the song build dynamically. So when I think of playing, I try to think, how is this song dynamically going and how can I support the song? The song is really not supposed to support me as a guitarist, but me as a guitarist, I want to support the worship leader and the song. So many times what that could look like, if I was going to play a song, in a verse, I might only play one note. And this is a little bit interesting, but what I'll end up doing is I'll play a one note line, something like this. So I'll tap in my tempo. And that's it. I might add some drive to it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create some space and some places for me to go. What's surprising is that guitar is actually not that much of a dynamic instrument, especially with electric guitar, because what we're having is most of the time the volume in which we play is going to be very similar. Now we may change our effects, we may change our reverbs, delays, drives, whatever we end up doing to help with some of these changes, but for the most part our sound is coming out at the same volume throughout the whole song. So my parts must represent this in a way that I'm able to build the song from a low point to a more dynamic spot. Now the second thing that I'll try to do is I typically try to stack my gain stages. This means that one pedal is not doing all the work for me. And so when I cut on my distortion or overdrive, I'm not wanting it to do everything. Now we talk about that a little bit more in our drives video, but what I'm basically saying is I want to be able to have a difference between maybe a first chorus where I play like this, and a second chorus where I can maybe kick on a second drive. So this allows me to then build up my dynamics throughout the whole song. Now, a couple other things that I might do is in verses or low choruses or bridges, I might use my swell settings. We also talk about that a lot in our reverb video. Now, there's a few things otherwise that I try to do that's a little bit more based on music theory and my technique. So effects-wise, I try to kind of keep things simple for verses and then build up during the choruses and bridges with drives, maybe a heavier delay or a reverb to really create more space and allow myself to have a little bit more dynamics. The other thing is I like to know shapes that are movable. Now this may be a little bit more than you bargained for here, but check this out. If I know my fretboard, which is something that a lot of guitarists tend to neglect, if I know where the notes are on my fretboard, I'm able to play in any song and any key, and I'm able to do that on the fly. So for example, there's something that's been kind of going around, it's kind of become trendy again, which is called the CAGED system on guitar. Now I don't want to get too much into this. I think there's other videos that explain this pretty well, but basically what they're talking about is movable shapes that I can play anywhere across the fretboard. A couple of them that I end up kind of adopting on my own that I think are very usable are shapes that model off of the D shape. So I'll take a D shape. Now I know that on the D, where my ring finger is at this moment, is the root note. I know that's the note that I'm going to be playing. So wherever I move this, that is going to become the root note and define what chord I'm playing. So right now I'm playing a D. If I take this same shape and I move it up the fret to maybe, let's say, here, then I look here and I know my fretboard, and so I'm able to say that's a G. So pretty cool. The other thing is, I then also know that I can do the same kind of things with maybe an A chord, a G chord, a C chord, and so forth. Therefore, if you look at it in order, C, A, G, E, and D, that's where they get the name, the CAGED system. Now, what I end up doing is you have bar chords that move all the way across the fretboard. So when I know my root note here is right here. So this is a major bar chord. I can move this up. If I play this here, this is going to be a B. Cool. Then I have an A shape, which I can play here. The root note is here. You can see that how that's an A shape. This is your E chord right there because that's where the root note is. So now I have E, A, and then C looks a little bit like this. So now my root note is right here, just like a C's here. I know that a G's here, so this is now a G chord. So you can go through these concepts and you can look at how they can move. Now what I tend to do is I think, especially when playing electric guitar, I'm competing with a lot of other sounds, such as pads, acoustic guitar, and any other keyboard kind of instrument. That sonic frequency is what I'm competing against. So I don't want to necessarily use up all of the space. So what I do, instead of playing full chords, like for example a G chord here in the C shape, I might take parts of that and only play 3 or 4 notes. So a very valuable chord then could be just part of that and playing like this. And I can move this around now and maybe adopt some other shapes, like maybe an E shape where I have it here. Now I can use my imagination and know that I can play these shapes like this. So what I can end up doing is I can move from a G to a C as a lead guitarist like this. Now, so that is in natural numbers, we would say that's a 1 and then a 4. And then if we want to go to a 5 chord, maybe we could take an A shape, which would be like this, again like this, and move it up to a D. So we have G, C, D, and then we would want a 6 chord, which would be the minor shape, which will look a lot like our G shape actually, except we will drop the pinky and move it here. So all together, that would be like this. If I were going to play a lead thing, it would be like this. So these techniques can help you play all across the fretboard, all across every single key, and you can have different inversions of your playing. That way you're not stuck just playing a simple bar chord or simple chords with a capo on electric guitar. Hey, thanks so much for watching to the very end of the video. If there was something in this video that we didn't cover that you would love to know more about, let us know down in the comments. And be sure to subscribe to us, like this video, so you can see more content that is like this.